You know, David, the first thing you notice in those remarks is that Trump looks visibly tired. You know, he was quite raspy in his voice, a little slow in his stride. And even through that tiredness, you got that signature Trump bluster and confidence. He claimed that he went into Election Day with a very big lead, despite the fact that many polls show Trump and Harris neck and neck. He also said that Republicans are coming out in force. And then you said that many of these battleground states actually look like battlegrounds. And so he was asked whether he would tell his supporters not to have a violent reaction in case he lost. And this is what he said.
Of course there'll be no violence. My supporters are not violent people. I don't have to tell them that. And I certainly don't want any violence, but I certainly don't have to tell. These are great people. These are people that believe in no violence.
By the way, David, he ended that answer by saying that it was that question that was violent. And
David, does it not feel surreal that this moment is finally here after all the conversations we have had for months, if not years now? But here at Howard University, the final preparations are underway for whatever this event will be for Kamala Harris. Tonight, we are told that she'll be having a dinner with her family. Tim Walz, her running mate, is also going to be at the Naval Observatory, the residence where the vice president lives. They'll be watching election results together, and then at some point, Kamala Harris will make her way over here to Howard University, her alma mater. She picked it as the location to deliver whatever she's going to deliver tonight, whether it is a hold on, wait and see message, whether it's a victory or whether it's a concession. Who knows? And there are so many other possibilities beyond that. We really don't know what's going to happen. But there's also a bit of an edge to any sort of excitement Democrats may be feeling. No one wants to get overconfident like they did back in 2016. The scars of Hillary Clinton's loss to Donald Trump then, it lives deep in the bones of a lot of Democrats. And so they're terrified of that happening again. But tonight, there are signs that people remain optimistic. When you chat with people here, they think that, their gut is that this is going to go her way eventually, no matter how long it takes. But again, no one wants to get too overconfident, and that's the way people here are talking about it.
No, the lessons of 2016 are there, Katie, and they do hope that Kamala can take away the trauma law. So what was the Harris campaign looking for in the early numbers, in the early results for signs that it's going their way?
It's all about, did the voters turn up in those big Democratic strongholds where they need those outsized performances to make sure that they can pick up those key swing states? Remember, a word that I've heard from Democrats, heard from pundits, it's that nauseous optimism. Not cautious optimism, nauseous optimism.
I feel cautiously optimistic because all the things that you want to do in a campaign, that's control the controllables, prioritize the priorities, and focus on the focus. I think that Democrats up and down the ballot, starting at the DNC in 2020 when Joe Biden became president, have done just that, and we are well positioned to win a 50-50 jump ball because the infrastructure is in place, the candidate quality lines up, as well as the things you want to control: high-tech, high-touch engagement, meeting voters where they are.
Right. So yeah, look, I think Republicans feel cautiously optimistic.
Well, here's why I feel very good about the words I speak. The direct engagement with certain type of voters in certain constituencies has come from the Democrats. There's an argument to be made that the ground game is unmatched that we've seen on our side compared to the Republicans. A large portion of that is due to the financial gap in between the two. Kamala's raised over $1 billion, not to mention outside groups. And then we've never had a candidate who can speak directly to younger voters in the way that Kamala Harris and Coach Walz has been able to do it. And if you add to that the down ballot races, including the 10 states that has reproductive freedom, reproductive justice on the ballot, I think it gives us an opportunity for a handsome night.
So, Matt, this is
when you talk about issues, Kamala Harris has been consistent in actually putting forth a policy agenda to actually address the issues that voters may have. I would argue that there's a large segment of women in this country who care about the freedom to make their own health care decisions. I would argue there's a large segment of young voters who care about the climate crisis and the investments there, as well as things like student loans and economics. I would argue that African Americans care about an economic agenda that speaks directly to them. Well, it's not just the reproductive freedom, reproductive justice. I think it's the Republicans' anti-women agenda you're going to see many silent Kamala Harris supporters who are going to turn into independent thinkers in this election.
See the results coming up there is ping pong back and forth. Donald Trump with a lead of 57% to just 42% for Kamala Harris. That is going to change many times throughout the night, folks, so throughout the week perhaps. In Florida, not surprisingly, Donald Trump, who lives in West Palm Beach at Mar-a-Lago, is at 53.4% to Kamala Harris is just under 46. We're bringing you updates as the polls close, and you can see the initial electoral college votes there on the bottom of your screen. 19 for Trump, 3 for Kamala Harris, and many of the early states closing are Republican-leaning states, so bear that in mind as those numbers change throughout the night.
The Harris Walls folks have had an incredible ground game here. They have got 29 offices. They have offices in places they haven't really had offices before.
No, that ground game the Democrats have built, it's amazing what $1 billion in fundraising can do for you in an election campaign. So.
Yeah, that's right, David. Officials here say that about 31,000 absentee ballots will have to be recounted. There was an issue with the tabulator. They say it appears that some of the doors were not fully sealed by senior election officials. So to eliminate any doubt and for transparency's sake, they've decided to start the tabulation process over again here at
you in the House here. Can you catch us up on what's happened so far, because things are happening?
Absolutely. Well, if you look at the bottom of the screen, you see a big number for Donald Trump, 60. But that doesn't mean that he is overwhelmingly winning the night. What it does mean is that there's certain states so far this evening that he is doing very well in. States like Florida, for example. Look at that, 82% of the votes counted in Florida. Donald Trump earlier today said, why can't other states count the way Florida does? Of course, So Adrian, at this point, no surprises, at least North Carolina. Now, it's really early. Not only 60% of the vote counted, but as I'm sure we'll hear from our panel, a lot depends on which votes have been counted so far. So don't read too much into that.
All right, Ian, thank you. So again, just to have a look at the bottom of the board, 90 to Donald Trump, 3 to Kamala Harris. There are no surprises on that board yet. Nothing has happened that is against what people had expected.
Adrian, I don't know if you can hear it, but it is an absolute dance party here. People are line dancing. They're expecting more than 1,000 students and staff. Plus, there are Democrats who are part of the campaign team. They're all filling in here to the quad at Howard University right now. Very early in the night. It is a mood of celebration. It is a mood of excitement, but it is tempered by fear. No one here thinks anyone is running away with this race, and there is deep concern, deep fear of a repeat of what happened with Hillary Clinton in 2016. So while there is so much excitement, Adrian, there's such a sense of pride, and they're gathering here, many people gathering here to celebrate. One thing I will say, Adrian, what has happened is that just for a moment, some big screens that are lining the quad here, they started playing some CNN, some American News Network coverage of the results. And when CNN projected that Donald Trump would be winning Florida, the way the crowd started to boo and the way sort of the energy started to just shift just a little bit, it sort of underscores the excitement that everyone has here, but also just the nerves, the edge that so many people are on.
Oh boy, you have a long night ahead of you, Katie. All right, you said that someone said to you, you're from Canada, why do you care? And together you came to the conclusion that, well, when you're in your home and you smell smoke, you stick your head out the window to see if your neighbor's house is burning down. So the neighbors are up to something, and so that's why, as Canadians, we care very deeply to figure out, is something on fire, Rosie?
Yeah, not yet, but that's what we're watching for. And that's because what is at stake? And what is at stake tonight is something that is more predictable and knowable in the Democratic candidate, and something that is more volatile and unpredictable with the Republican candidate.
But also knowable.
Also knowable. What happens to that war in Ukraine, whether Canada is under pressure to pony up more money for NATO, these are all big, big issues. And those are the things that people in Ottawa and certainly all Canadians will be thinking about tonight.
You're seeing a bump again, just for Kamala Harris. That is Colorado that has just come in. Again, not a surprise there.
Yeah, Adrian, as these results come in, a little disappointment by Democrats here, seeing Kamala Harris seeming to lose a bit of support, slipping support in Georgia and North Carolina, which makes winning Pennsylvania for the Harris camp all the more critical. So they're feeling upbeat. One of the networks called Colorado, which gave them some optimism, but they're really watching carefully these slow results trickling in across Pennsylvania. As we're going to get John to just pan over here because the crowd is filling up here after polls closed. This party is getting underway. There's pizza, there's Yingling flowing. We're in Pennsylvania, of course, but of course there's optimism and anxiety. Also, but at this point, there is some optimism here, cautious optimism, on the results Democrats are seeing tonight in Pennsylvania.
All right, Richard, thank you. I think probably your cautious optimism will probably suggest Katie Simpson's characterization of nauseous optimism. What she heard from Democrats is potentially more apt.
I need to find a word that rhymes with nauseous and cautious.
I know.
I just can't do it off the top of my head. Yeah, we have some time to work on that. Let's look at Pennsylvania. Richard was talking about those numbers, and there you see a lead for Donald Trump. But listen, I've got to bring your attention, the upper right-hand corner of our board there, 50% of the expected votes counted. So lots of room there, and we'll dig in a little deeper to see where the votes have been counted so far in Pennsylvania. So lots of potential for change there. There are some good signs, and I'm sure the Democrats are desperately seeking good signs right now. Some good signs right now in Arizona.
Mm-hmm. What a thin margin, though.
Yep.
Of time with Pennsylvania, a couple things. You know, certainly they are counting through the night. That's not what they did last time. And at 12:01 a.m., we will get a sense from Pennsylvania in terms of how many mail-in ballots there are left to count. So that will give us a sense of a margin, if you will, of what's left to come. That certainly was not the case in 2020, so that led to some of the confusion. But there should be a better understanding of the numbers. But so, Aisha, I'm just curious. Are you talking with people on the ground in Wisconsin or Pennsylvania, any of those blue wall states?
So Pennsylvania in particular, we are going back and forth and biting our nails. But there's, you know, Pennsylvania, it's interesting because a lot of work has been done there. You see that the Harris campaign invested really heavily in trying to...
the money that's
There's so much money that's gone there. And you also have a really popular governor there in Josh Shapiro, very popular all across the state. And so how this is playing out is really interesting right now. And you can see those pockets of where the investment has happened on both sides. Well,
so there's the long game and then there's the short game of betting. And I know that while we're looking at some of these numbers, you're also looking at the betting odds, right?
Yeah, and in the last 45 minutes, they have shot way up to between 85 and 90% in all the different various markets, polymarket. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't win tonight or tomorrow, there's going to be a whole lot of people that think something went very wrong, and that's what I'm afraid of. I don't. We want a clean result. We hope that the margin is big enough on either side. But where it is right now, the public believes he's going to win.
Okay, so a couple things about that. I think everyone's heard Donald Trump's too big to rig, make it too big to rig. I think that's a line that both campaigns would want to hang on to.
Yeah.
But in every election cycle, we have this conversation with people about hang on to your hats about the first results you see because they change through the night. Has that not landed for people, do you think?
To some extent, but a lot of those rules have been changed where that red mirage doesn't exactly work that way anymore. And
Donald Trump has never, ever claimed defeat around anything, even as a guy who has filed bankruptcy 6 times, right, who has been held liable for sexual assault. Like, he has never claimed defeat. So there isn't a margin.
As a convicted felon.
Right, he's a convicted felon,
Yeah,
right? Like, so there isn't, you know, the thing that makes me fearful, and in fact, people are texting me right now saying, oh my God, I'm scared to death. What if Donald Trump wins? Not simply because of the politics of it, because because of the fear of the violence in the streets around it, especially for those of us who are Black and brown people in the United States, right? We watched January 6th. We know that there's an incitement of violence because you don't get your way. And Donald Trump has spent the entire election convincing people that the game is rigged before anybody even started voting, right? His entire, brouhaha has been, oh, well, they're cheating, right? They're cheating. They're going to cheat. We're going to have lawyers there to make sure that they're not cheating. And so that is something I, appreciate the way that you say that there are a lot of people who believe that he's going to win. And when we talk about the betting odds and the belief, that's the thing that makes those of us who actually broker in like real facts and data concerned, because people's attitudes and opinions about what they believe that are based in nothing other than someone's attitude and lies about something being rigged that aren't really true end up having like really fatal consequences for a lot of minorities in the United States, because it incites people to take their attitudes about what they think should have been and go out and act upon them even though they're not reality. And so I would hope that if, in fact, this night ends and it's unclear what's going on, that the former president would say, it's still unclear about what's going on, we're waiting for everybody to finish counting, and not actually incite something other than what the numbers are telling us.
Okay, well, the number 270, winning the White House, that's where they're sitting right now. It is inching closer and closer. And at the bottom of your screen, that's where the popular vote sits. Now, that is interesting. Keep an eye on the popular vote. 52.4% for Donald Trump, 46.3% for Kamala Harris. Paul Hunter, should those trends last, what story does that tell you?
Well, who said Democrats are always nervous. Like they can't accept that things might roll their way. And I wonder what your degree of nauseousness is right now, and nervousness.
I think that, the nauseous nervousness is because Democrats leave it all on the field. I mean, this is the thing, is that the ground game, and I'll, constantly repeat, despite the outcome of whatever may end up happening tonight, this has been the most flawlessly executed campaign in modern history, especially given how truncated it was. Democrats double down and invest hard in the ground game where it matters and have boots on the ground, have enthusiasm, and get people motivated to move, right? Leave it all on turf. Do the hard work. And it is so anxiety-provoking when sometimes that's not enough. When you play the game really well, but you still don't win because that's not enough. And have this idea of, we're not going back, which is essentially a progressive narrative of inclusion and bringing everybody with us. And then you have this other idea of like, let's make America great and go backwards, where America, essentially the power structure in America was, made up mostly of a certain kind of person, right? There was a white power element to that. And you're seeing that play out in these elections too. And so I do think that we're at a tipping point where it's going to be like really, really tight for a while, and it's going to be even deeper struggle. And I would say that the Democrats have a lot more exhaustion around it and anxiety because we put so much into it tactically. We're not just sitting around talking trash about it. We're actually out there doing it. I think also, then I'll speak for myself, and certainly not all Democrats, but there's also something to a little bit of pride in that, and that when you lose, we don't need to storm the Capitol because we know we put it on the line and we did the work. And sometimes it's not enough, but you do the work, right? We don't need to go and try to steal it.
Yeah, and again, not to sound like a broken record, we're not there yet. We're writing a story that hasn't finished yet. The bump you're seeing on the, I just want to check. Yeah, the bump you're seeing on the results board there. Yeah, that's Oregon for Kamala Harris.
But listen, I don't disagree that if Harris is not victorious, that there will be a lot of finger blaming, and there will be a lot of pointing of those fingers at Joe Biden. She's encouraging the staff to get a good night's rest because the fight continues tomorrow and probably throughout the week. Each of these states, but I think it's not over yet, obviously. But there was some hope that perhaps one of the early called states like North Carolina and Georgia would go in Harris's direction. We don't know if that's going to happen. It does not look likely. But again, it's not over yet. The path to victory for Harris right now is that blue wall, and each of those states is very, very, very close. The issue here is former President Trump has really made inroads with Hispanic voters nationally, but specifically in the state of Pennsylvania.
So there are still paths there, but right now, Donald Trump and the people who support Donald Trump must be feeling pretty good.
I bet.
But I feel like I vote for policy over people, and none of Kamala's policies really resonate with me at all.
So was Roe versus Wade, reproductive freedom, and abortion rights? Why did that not resonate with you? Did that not resonate? There's a lot of young women here. Why do you think they didn't get the vote pushing that issue?
I've been pro-life my whole life, and I feel like that pro-life is pro-woman. I think that it's a really easy lie that Democrats tell young women that abortion is health care. It's not. It's not reproductive rights. Reproductive means bringing children into the world, and that's the opposite of what abortion does. And I think the abortion industry, it's just a lie.
I'm thinking, what's happening for the Democrats, other than Kamala jumping into this, right, in July? There's not a lot going on. Things are kind of okay compared to where they were in 2020 in terms of motivating Democrats, because we're not as angry as we were about the circumstances then. And I wonder, when all is said and done and all of these exit polls happen, why did people not come out with the same veracity that they did in 2020 when you had a candidate that was running from his basement, to your point, right?
Let's keep.
We were at the Democrats' watch party, and about an hour ago, they just said, "That's it, go home." Threw us out, not impolitely, but they said it's over.
Unfortunately, the Democratic Party has left a lot of people. They're way too far left. Some of the things they believe in, we don't believe in the South. And in this particular election, with immigration being a huge hot topic and the economy being another, unfortunately, that candidate had no opinion on any of that as far as what she was going to do to make the country better. So unless you have a plan, I don't see the point in running for office unless you can tell me what you're going to do for me. So
we're not finished here. There's still more to talk about, and what an interesting woman you just spoke to. The notion of, thanks very much, John, the notion of what is the candidate going to do for me? Maybe this, we are conservative. What is the Democratic Party? What is its identity? These are big questions to come. And what are the things that you think went wrong for Kamala Harris?
Yeah, again, I don't necessarily think that there's anything we can say she went wrong. I think that the narrative was just too much for her to overcome. There's a narrative that Democrats are leaning too far left on cultural issues like abortion, like immigration, like LGBTQ, particularly trans rights. I don't necessarily think it's steeped in what Democrats are truly focused on, but Republicans have shaped the narrative. So if, even on the economy, the messaging from Republicans is that she didn't have a plan. Well, she had lots of plans she announced. She had lots of plans she proposed, but perhaps it didn't quite break through. I guess for whatever reason, she wasn't able to break through. She, again, had a very short landing, short runway, if you will, but her messaging just wasn't able to break through. But I don't know if there's anything you can say she could have done differently. I just think in this divided, highly partisan nation that I live in, people aren't always listening. It's hard to break through when a narrative has been set. And I think we really saw that in this election.
Let's take a look at what's happening in Nevada. First results
finally.
in the state of Nevada, the last of the swing states to report. 75% of the votes in, as you can see in the upper right-hand corner, and a pretty sizable lead for Donald Trump in Nevada, as he has really in all the swing states, although in the wall kind of goes back and forth, but he has been consistently leading there as well. So it continues to be a really good night for Donald Trump.
Indeed. How interesting if he ends up taking all of the swing states.
that the Democratic Party has moved too far to the left, that they are no longer representing the vast majority of Canadians, of Americans.
Interesting thought.
Same thing here. Same thing here. And is there a course correction that is needed? I mean, that is, if these swing states keep moving in that direction, I think that becomes kind of a soul-searching moment for Democrats.
Absolutely. All right, more to think about there. All right, it is now a little past 1 a.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. in Alaska, and that matters because it means all the polls have now closed. So, okay, so that's done. The polls have closed. The counting continues. Rosie's like, yes, they've closed. All right, let's talk. What are you thinking, Tia? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I don't mean to call you Tia. I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm sorry.
Call me whatever you want. Donald Trump as president again. I think that for sure the Democrats have some soul searching to do, but I, wonder, one of the biggest fears that I have had and will continue to have around the Trump presidency is that he is a bully and he is vindictive, and he has said time and time again that he's going to have a list of people that he considers his enemies, and he's going to use all the resources and his powers to go after those people.
I just want to get a quick chat in with Katie at Harris headquarters before they turn out the lights, I think, basically, Katie.
Yeah, that's what's happening now. Even before the crowd started to leave, we started to see some of the decorations come down. And then, of course, we got that announcement from the campaign co-chair saying, listen, Kamala Harris is not going to be coming out to make any statement right now. Wait until the morning. There will be future guidance in the morning. So they largely see this as, a loss for the Democratic Party and sort of like a moment of reflection, a deep sense of disappointment that given everything Donald Trump has said, especially with some of the rhetoric he uses, that America would not just be on track to win the Electoral College, but that he leads in the popular vote. That is something that the people we spoke with say is deeply concerning, deeply disappointing. We spoke with one young woman who said she was very serious about this. It's not just, election night hyperbole. She says she's going to see if she has the kind of resources that she might need to leave the country, because she is predicting from her perspective that it's going to be 4 dark years under Donald Trump. A young woman, a black woman, very deeply disappointed. We spoke with another Harris supporter who is just so overwhelmed and stressed about what may come next. The deep sense of disappointment when the co-chair came out to announce that, Kamala Harris was not coming here to Howard. Before the event began tonight, there was such a sense of excitement. People were dancing. It felt like a celebration, and there was a real hope here that perhaps even if Kamala Harris, even if there wasn't going to be a win tonight, that perhaps she would be on track, projected toward a moment in history. And slowly, as the results started coming in and things looked very, very tight in those battleground states, as expected, and Donald Trump was projected the winner by some of these American news networks, the crowd energy just started to dissipate. They weren't even booing at the screen anymore. They were just quiet as the results, particularly when North Carolina was called. There were some booing earlier in the night, still some energy, some fight left. But then when that North Carolina call came in, it was just calm, calm, calm.
While there are lots of Americans who will feel upset about tonight, is it spares the United States what many people feared. The violence, the questioning, the rioting, the uprising, the not peaceful transition of power. It sort of puts to bed the idea that democracy was on the ballot. I mean, we'll see how he governs, but for this period of time, at any rate, it actually sort of shores up the notion of democracy in some ways, and it puts aside the idea that Americans are going to have to take to the streets, because the victory is too big for that. Like, there will be people who will be mad, but it cannot lead to the things that some people feared the most.
But some might say that's only because that side won, right?
Sure, yes, perhaps. But I also think because the victory is so big, it becomes very difficult for that kind of thing to happen. But yes, maybe it's because that's not what Democrats do anyway.
Well, look,
Kevin doesn't agree with
let's
that
not go there. But
that's what I meant.
I know that's what you mean. I know that's what you mean. But
that's the case.
But that's what America is spared
right,
tonight.
because
that's my point.
There's no disputing it.
There's no disputing it.
There's no questioning what just happened there. It's very, very clear. At least one network has already called this election for Donald Trump, but until a plurality of them do, because so much counting is happening, it may feel like a technicality. It may indeed end up being a technicality, but we will be right. So when we hit that magic 270 number, we will let you know. Because the numbers are still so stubborn, we have a question naturally for Ian. Is Nevada okay? Arizona okay? What is happening with the numbers? What are we waiting for?
Yeah, I mean, baby steps now from 266 to 270, and there are 4 paths that Trump can take to get to the White House. I mean, it's going to happen. In any event, he's going to get to 270. The question is it going to happen at 350 this morning or 450?
Oh, wash your mouth out, Mr. Hemansky.
550?
Oh, stop.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or no.
It is tomorrow.
Whatever day we're on.
Yeah.
Whatever are you trying to drive at there, Ian?
Yeah. Anyway, it's going to happen.
All right, and we will. Thanks for coming out, Ian. All right, good morning. It's 3:46 in the morning. Donald Trump has already spoken, has already thanked everyone, talked about what he will do in his presidency. You can see the numbers, though. They're still stuck down there. 266 for Trump, 219 for Kamala Harris. Don't be under any illusions, though, that this is still close or something else is going to happen. This is, at this point, a matter of being certain that the trends, which are certainly undoubtedly heading towards Donald Trump being in the White House, it's just finalizing those numbers and getting an accurate call for each of the remaining states and determining whether this is a night where the 7 swing states that were considered up for grabs all went to Donald Trump.
She didn't go through, this is not the result of a primary process. Nobody voted for her to be the nominee. And then just the short runway that we've talked about, no time for her. All this, arguably, pointing fingers, can be, why did you hang on? Why did you put self ahead of party, to use that? That's not the question you asked. You asked about what he can get done now before the end of his presidency. But is that a part of his legacy now, that he stayed too long? And as a result, it's Donald Trump 2.0.
And 48%, presumably, based on what we're seeing right now, of America lost. So the question becomes, listen, tomorrow morning, 48% of America is going to wake up heartbroken, afraid, largely, right? So it's not anger, right? Not running around with pitchforks, angry and mad. We're scared, we're vulnerable, we're frustrated, and there will absolutely be a whole lot of, finger pointing at the Democratic Party. But what now is Donald Trump going to do to, quote unquote, unite America? Because 48% of the people can't stand him. And what is he going to do to reach across and to develop an agenda that feels inclusive? That's really the question at hand, and it's something that he's never done.
CBC News is calling Donald Trump the winner of the state of Wisconsin, another of those 7 key battleground states. And there on the bottom of your screen, you see the number from Wisconsin, the 10 electoral college votes in Wisconsin, takes him above the 270 electoral college vote threshold and takes him into the White House. Donald J. Trump will be the next U.S. president. He becomes the leader of the world's most powerful nation for a second time, 45 and now 47. He is the first former president in the modern era to be elected again after losing an election. That has not happened in almost 130 years. You have to go back to the presidencies of Grover Cleveland. Trump's return to the White House is marked by other firsts. He will be the first twice impeached president to be reelected. He will be the first president convicted in a criminal court and found liable in civil court. He is still facing a federal indictment and potential trial over allegations he tried to overturn the 2020 election. Now he has won the 2024 race. And he will be, as I mentioned, the 47th president of the United States. Governing with a mandate from Americans voting for his promise of prosperity and deep tax cuts. That pledge could come with profound consequences for Canada. Trump says he'll bring in tariffs that could disrupt Canadian trade with the United States and Ottawa's relations with Washington. There are dark clouds, too, in Trump's vow to make America great again. He's vowing to stop illegal migrants with an unprecedented crackdown and deportation, saying he will begin rounding up millions of people on the first day of his presidency. In his speech early this morning, Trump says he will bring the country together, saying he will be united and will unite Americans of all background in common cause. Donald J. Trump, the 47th president of the United States.